So, welcome to the next edition of the Punk CX podcast. With me today, I have Ping Wu, who is the CEO of Cresta. Now, Ping is one of the foremost experts in the field of customer experience AI. He co-founded and led Google's contact center AI and Vertex AI platforms. He was an engineering leader at Google and YouTube and joined Cresta in 2021 to build the future of AI-driven customer experiences. Ping holds a PhD in computer science from the University of California, Santa Barbara, and is here on the podcast with me today. Hey, Ping, how are you doing? And welcome.
Great. Hi, Adrian. Great to meet you, and thank you for having me here.
You're very welcome. Now, I always ask, sometimes I do a little bit of an intro to my guests, but then I always ask after I've done those intros, if there's anything that I missed out from my intro that you'd like to add.
Yeah, I think one thing is before I worked at Google Cloud and I worked on contact center AI and Vertex AI, I actually spent 8 years at Google mobile ads. I joined Google 2008 and almost 14 and spent 14 years there. So the first thing I did at Google was actually in mobile. So mobile ads was at that time was also very early, just like AI in 2017. So yeah, this was very fortunate to see that consumer paradigm shift towards mobile and was very fortunate to be part of that for 7 years, and that business grew over 1000x.
No, nice.
Yeah. So, but I think that AI opportunity and combined with cloud is going to be even more than that.
Wow. Okay. Well, we shall see, shan't we? So in the run up to setting up this kind of podcast, we had a bit of a chat and you shared a number of things that I wanted to explore because I thought it was worth exploring and I thought it'd be interesting for the audience. And the first thing that you said is that you think that many brands are suffering from split personality disorder. And I thought, wow, that's quite a claim. And I wanted to ask you to explain what you mean by that and what are the implications for brands or organizations that want to deliver better outcomes for their customers?
Yeah, that's a great question. The way we think about it, every one of us have experience interacting with brands and different businesses and they provide service to us. And then there are so many different touch points, and each one of them feels like a different person almost. First of all, they rarely do they have the same contacts from previous interactions, and then can anticipate the next interaction. And also at the same time, think about during sales and customer service and marketing, these different stage of the customer journey, the personality feel very different, right? And we all have experience where during the sales cycle, that just the business or the brand really want to speak to us. And then once we actually sign up, become a customer, and it just completely turn into different personality almost. And it's very hard to get hold of them. And if you want to reach out to them, usually they will trying to, sometimes it's very hard to get to actual human to speak to. And it's not very easy sometimes even to find a phone number to call them in case you have urgent service request. So from that perspective, it almost feel, I don't think it's anyone's fault, just the limitation of technology at a time that you don't, suffer from the silos of the data and as well as just in the missing the context, right? And then on top of that, in each individual session, when you speak to a business, you are going through, the context also get lost during different transfers. Either from now you have AI agents interfacing with human customers, and I will speak to AI, and then it got transferred into a human sometime, and the human will almost see me as a stranger. I have to start all over again, right? That is not a consistent experience, not as if that we are talking to the brand as if that's a relationship, right? We're talking about long-term relationship, but that does not feel, that consistent experience. So that's why we use the term split personality. But I do think that the AI-powered user journey and the future of CX will solve that. Will really turn that into a long-term relationship.
Yeah,
and then really know you at the personal level.
I think it's really interesting because I had that sort of experience just today. Actually, I was having to call an insurance company to query something or to a policy, and I was interacting with their self-service sort of automated voice self-service kind of system, and they asked me to tell me what your policy number is. So I told them what the policy number is, and then got to the end of that sort of stage, and then I got passed on to a human being to solve the kind of the problem. And the first thing that they asked me was, "What's your policy number?" And I was a bit like, "I've just
Yeah.
told you that." I mean, it's not been I've told it to somebody else and they've forgotten to write it down or something, but I've told it to a piece of technology that sucked that into its thing because they've confirmed it. They've repeated it back to me. They have that data in their system, and it just hasn't been kind of like passed on. So it does feel like these little things, as you say, it's almost you feel like you're having one conversation with a whole organization, but you end up it ends up being that you actually end up having multiple conversations, and that just feels underwhelming, let's say.
100%. Yeah, but I think the future is bright, and I do think that with AI, interacting with customers and also AI assisting the agents, and that context will be maintained, and then that will really become like that relationship. You feel like consistent talking, speak to, not a stranger anymore.
Yeah.
Just one business. I think that's the future that we're building towards.
And I think it's interesting because it leads me on to the next thing that you said, because I mean, what you're talking about is how do we retain the conversational intelligence, if you like, to kind of to so you can pass on context, you can use that kind of historically to understand kind of is there any kind of patterns that can like show up. But previously, you also said to me that you don't think that, well, you believe that CRM technology, where it might traditionally or naturally kind of like sit in a historical context, is where this data would sit. You think fundamentally it's not the right type of technology to develop that type of conversational intelligence that is needed to drive those better outcomes. And I wanted to ask you, it's like going, okay, why, and what should we be using in its kind of place?
Yeah. I think it's useful to think about historical perspective, right? Why we have CRM. And a CRM is an application on top of a relational database that existed for multiple decades, right? Initially, it's used to coordinating between sales team and have a single source of truth, right? And then at that time, the relational database, just getting invented, that's a table, right? You have to store information there, and then you have annotated with schemas. That's how a table look like. That's the data model that entire industry built around. And then the code itself, cannot function without knowing the table, the schema, right? And then that's the constraint at the time. Now, I think that's everything changes because of AI. And that doesn't mean that AI in the new paradigm, that model, database, or CRM should disappear. It will still work very well, and there are important information storing there. But what we are seeing is that that's not enough, right? And first of all, the CRM data is very sparse. You only have some, again, structured information that you can capture, but that's not a full raw information that capture the entirety of the relationship. It's not really a full relationship, right? If I tell an airline that I always fly in November with my dad have Parkinson's, he need a wheelchair, and that information, if the airline next time I call them, or a year from now, they remember that will be a jaw-dropping moment experience for any customers, right? And then, but the CRM today, you cannot capture that. It's, all these information is lost because, again, they're unstructured information, as human conversation messy. It's not in today's relational databases because, traditionally, the code, the software cannot handle unstructured information like conversation very well. But now, with the new paradigm, you can store all that historical context in its full raw form, or maybe you can compress a little bit with summarization, all that, and then you leverage that with large language model powered AI agent. Those agents are that new paradigm. Is what it brings is that it can make total sense of that unstructured information that previously the software cannot make sense of. So with that paradigm shift, for the first time, now you can store all that and then be used for your future interactions. That is a very, very big thing. And I do think that instead of replacing the existing CRMs, the next generation of that customer relation context will have its own storage, will capture all the historical interactions from how the business get to know the user and all the way to the current interaction, almost like a Facebook feed.
Yeah.
It's like
Yes.
capturing all your interaction, and then we'll make the future, all the interactions a lot more personalized. And I think that's a foundation piece that will lead to the future of really a custom relationship instead of, the split personality disorder.
CRM will end up doing the job it's supposed to do, i.e. being able to help you manage relationships rather than just being a system of record.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, do you not think that the kind of the next gen of CRMs might actually go, well, we can build our system to almost parse out the content, the sentiment, the intent, the context of the from this unstructured structured data, and then can populate it
Yeah.
into almost to almost add nuance and flavor and and depth to
Yeah.
kind of like to those kind of customer records. But I guess on an old historical architecture, you kind of like it's a relational database, that may actually be a bit hard from an architectural perspective.
Right. So, that's not replacing the existing relational databases. They're going to still have the information that's like the names or number, whatever the structure information. But what I'm saying is on top of it, now you can store the historical unstructured interactions in its raw form, original form, like
Yep.
conversation like this by itself. And all the website interactions or the ads the users see and click, and that how you get to the landing page,
Yep.
all that will be in the context. And then that will have its own different storage. And then that will be leveraged by AI agents or AI agent supporting humans or AI agent directly autonomously facing customer in real time. And to make that interaction feel a continuation of all the previous conversations. I think that's the future we're building towards.
And you think that I mean, people could have people like a bit of a label, and
Oh yeah.
and does that mean you think that there's this sort of system you're talking about, like a CDP type of system, which kind of captures all of that from like all that sort of contextual data, the conversational data, the journey data from all the different places, brings it all together, or do you think are we talking about something completely different?
I think it's less about how we call them, but CDP, in my understanding, it's optimized for real-time access and those small data payload
Okay.
access to personalize, like ads or
Yeah.
other interactions. And that's mostly still structuring nature. But what we're talking about is a long continuous window
Right.
of all the interactions or even website, not necessarily conversation interactions, but that capture its raw form. And then with the AI agent, with the LM-powered AI agent, they can process and make sense of all the past and then
Right.
make the next interaction, only selectively bring the bits of information that will make the current interaction personalized, right?
Okay.
And yeah, and
I
forget about
understand.
everything else.
Yeah.
Just like
No, yeah.
real human with very long-term memory.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Um, okay. That makes sense. But it also kind of like it shows that there's for many organizations there's actually a lot of work to do to get ready for that type of environment. I mean, there's I think for my understanding is that many organizations sometimes fail in this regard because their data architecture or their cleanliness just isn't up to scratch.
Yeah, surprisingly, I think counterintuitively, I do think that the type of data context I just mentioned is probably easier to build versus the previous data storage.
Yeah.
The reason being, I think all these data interaction, when it's first generated, it's messy, it's unstructured, right? You think about their original form is already unstructured. You do not need to do additional refinement,
Yes.
right? So you can capture, as long as you capture it and store it and then feed into AI in real time, it can make sense. Of course, you may actually need to deal with some latency of AI agent, the limited context window, so you have to maybe do some compaction and do the summary, right? But that is, to me, a simpler problem because you do not need to go up the ladder of structuredness. If you think about the data, its original form, it's like, it's almost like the level of energy you need to
Yeah.
take from its high entropy state to like lower entropy state where you have the structure form. It's tabular, and it's
Mhm.
very beautiful, but it's hard to maintain. So that process require computation, require
Yeah.
either human computation or machine computation, and
Mm.
it require a lot of energy to maintain. So that's why it's hard,
Yeah.
and it's brittle. But if you capture a raw form, it's not that complicated. And
Yeah.
then if you use the AI agent or agent assistant or Cresta product, we kind of originally, or we already capture that information for you, and then we kind of store it away.
Okay.
So yeah.
I mean, talking about that idea about using kind of agents and acting on all that sort of conversational intelligence, one of the final things that you talked to me about was that, like, you were saying that many people talk about taking an automation only approach to much of their customer support. And you described it in a way that I thought was funny, because you said, but you think that's a mistake. And I described taking an AI automation only approach like taking a shower with a raincoat on. And I thought that was funny. And I wanted to, I wanted to get it on the kind of the podcast because I thought it was an interesting analogy, but I wanted to help you understand what you mean by that and what should brands be thinking about instead.
Oh yeah, so and that's just one analogy we think about, because we do think that contact center or customer experience transformation with AI, automation alone do not solve the whole problem, the entire problem. It's just one part of the overall solution,
Mm,
right? So for me, it's almost like you wash your face but with the wrinkle cover everything else,
right, I see.
and you have a shiny face, but at the end of the day, it do not solve a lot of problems. Actually, will cause a lot more problems if you just have a silo between the AI automation versus the rest of the humans. So I think for two reasons. First is the reality is there's still a lot of humans. You start with 100% humans,
Hmm.
right? From 5 years ago, and then towards the future where you will see more and more AI autonomously handle all these interactions, and then also AI will helping humans,
Hmm.
right? And the automation only approach is only automate part of the conversation, but it's a huge opportunity for AI to also assisting. It can also be AI agent that just work alongside the humans and take away the repetitive work and make them a lot more productive and be emotionally available to customers.
Mm,
So for that, I think that's what the true solution should look like. It's not only automate but also augment.
hmm.
And then even we have seen a lot of customers what they want to what they told us is that we actually want to use AI to really understand the deeper reason why people call in, the root cause, so that we fix the problem. And then we fix the problem, so eliminate those unhappy interactions in the first place, so that they do not even hit the automation layer, right? So for me, the real transformation, like the real taking a shower, is have these three pillars: is analyze and automate and also augment.
Hmm.
That's unleash the full power of AI. And the second, we've been building AI solution since my contact center AI, CCAI days at Google. And one thing I learned is that in order to get to the best automation solution, you really want to tap into the human intelligence in the contact center.
Mm,
I think the transition is gradual. You're going to improve the AI agent. AI agent is not going to be 100%, on day one. No Fortune 500 company CIO will tell you that I'm going to unplug my call center tomorrow, and it's not going to be all AI agent. It's going to be a gradual rollout, and then it's a gradual improvement, right? It's very easy to launch something that maybe do some simple use cases like password reset or account status tracking, or where's my shipment, or that kind of queries. But most of those things, interactions are more complicated,
hmm.
and then there are a lot of long tail questions that humans actually handle today, and there's tons of tribe knowledge that are locked in humans' head that's not documented anywhere. So the path to get to the optimal potential of automation is like you cannot ignore the humans that already today that's there, because there's so many intelligence that's been wasted almost. Every time, every day, thousands of humans, they do things. You need to watch them and then to really understand what's going on, and then to see where AI agents fail today, and then that get to the next percent better. You have to see where actually how human get to resolution, and then you turn that feedback into AI agent. That's what feel it's very much important. It's kind of missing is the continuous feedback loop, watching humans and then make AI better. So that's what I meant is automation alone is not the full solution, is part of the solution. And then at Cresta, we built this multi-pillared solution to transformation.
And yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I love the fact that you kind of said that you've actually got to understand the whole problem. And I think there's a mistake that kind of many people can make, is they rush into just trying to either augment or automate without actually really understanding the problem. And it's almost a bit like, we got a spanner, now we're going to go find something to fix, sort of thing.
Oh, yeah. And because AI automation is not going to fix your problem, your CX, your call center is the symptoms of a lot of problems that you may actually have in your business. Either it can be a broken website, confusing policy, or UX problem on the application that cause people to, get confused, and then they need to call you. So if you can get that insight out of those conversations, either it's AI-led or human-led, doesn't matter. You get to, and then AI now is good enough that can really dive deeper into all these deeper issues and give you the insights and give you actionable insights that you can take to fix your business. That's even better than automation. That you just do not even have those interactions in the first place, because I'm happier.
I think the other thing I was going to say was that I really like that idea about, you talked about tribe knowledge. And I mean, I wrote something, I think last year, and it was alluding to the idea that I said that to be successful in this space, there's two types of AI. One is artificial intelligence and one is agent intelligence. And you have to get both right to get that right. And because the scale of the tribe knowledge, I think, is not something we necessarily can lay our hands on. But interestingly enough, there was some data I learned from another, I think, podcast some time ago. And, not necessarily in a contact center, but like in that sort of service sort of space, I mean, it'll give you an idea of the scale of it, is that in field service, which is to do with like fixing machines or equipment out in our environment, some of which are decades old. If you think about equipment that sits in a hospital, like an X-ray machine or whatever, it may be 20 or 30 years old. And there's a number of problems. One is that the field service engineers are getting older and they're retiring, and their knowledge is getting kind of lost, and that they're struggling to attract new people in. Then there's this alarming stat that says somewhere in the region of 30% of all field service kind of queries cannot be answered by referencing kind of historical documentation, because it all sits in the heads of your senior field service engineers. And so that gives you a scale of the type of tribe knowledge that many organizations are dealing with, and how to try and capture that, learn from it, codify it, harness it, and all those sort of things is like a real challenge. But you don't really necessarily understand that if you've not really spent the time analyzing and thinking about the problem.
Right. Yeah, just do a simple thought exercise, right? If you push to one end of the spectrum, you think that AI is all-knowing, it's very, very smart, it's already smarter. Today's AI is, in some tasks, is already a lot smarter than a human, right? Let's say you have the smartest human today, and you put into a very complex Fortune 10 company's call center, and that human is not going to do the job, because there's so much. These are not intelligence, right? These are just a lot of knowledge and a lot of things about how to get things done. What's the policy? What's the preference? What's the business in, how do you use all these different tools? And these are about knowledge. And then most of these knowledge are not documented anywhere. And then they constantly change it. Even if it's documented, then, a lot of time it's get out of sync with the reality. And then many of these tools, interfaces, are in-house built, and there's no APIs, no rails for the AI agent to interact with and take the action. So that's why I feel that A lot of time it's not the model capability is the bottleneck, but rather it's the context and, it's in the digitalizing, encoding the knowledge in a way that AI can leverage to solve these problems. That's the bottleneck.
Right.
And then to solve that bottleneck, the only way to do is to watch humans, how they do it. And then be able to kind of capture in a way that for AI to learn from it either, so I think, for certain domains like math and programming, the input and output are all digital, and then you can verify the output, and then you can use reinforcement learning to improve the model by
Hmm.
constantly doing in trial. And that's a very special type of domain of knowledge and then problems that AI is getting really, really good at.
Hmm.
But I think for many other domains that may not immediately fit into that paradigm, we do not see enough progress. And then I think for contact center, depends on the complexity of the contact center toolings and then institution knowledge. And, you mentioned tribe knowledge. I think that's just a lot of engineering challenges to put these things together and to feed into the model versus, thinking about a model by itself. So that's why, all boils down to the one thing that I think we agreed on is you really need to look and leverage the human intelligence to really understand how humans solve these problems. And then that's also what I believe automation alone, ignoring the contact center, just stay outside is like really taking a shower with the raincoat on.
So thank you for that thing. I mean, but maybe to kind of bring this to life, I wonder if you could share with us a couple of examples of brands that you've helped kind of, follow your kind of approach, leverage your technology, and help you understand like what sort of challenges they were facing and what they've done to overcome those challenges, and
Mhm.
what sort of benefits or outcomes they're driving.
Yeah, one example is Propel Holdings. They're a Canadian fintech company.
Hmm.
They're going through hyper growth, but they also want to maintain the operation efficiency during that high growth when they have a lot more consumers that sign up their service. So how do you service more consumers without doubling or tripling your contact center? And usually those contact centers, it's hard to get to a lot of humans immediately, or
Hmm.
hard to forecast. It's, how do you provision it? How do you forecast? Is it, you hire for the peak or trough? And, there's a lot of these problems. So we work with them with our AI agent solution that autonomously handle custom-facing interactions, and that bring, the make sure that there's operation efficiency at the same time maintain equal or higher CSAT, customer satisfaction, low wait time. And that's one example, right? And another example, we're working with a pet store, a pet care service.
Hmm.
And very interestingly, in that case, it's not even about reducing efficiency. It's about using AI agent to do the job that they simply do not have the humans to do. So
Right.
they have 1 million customer relationships. They keep track of, for example, when was the last time your pet did a haircut or a grooming session. And then they would love to do is they want to proactively reach out to the pet owner and saying that, oh, you're overdue with the grooming session. You want to come in, and
Right.
how is your chocho doing? And that type of thing they just cannot do today because they do not have enough headcounts to
Hmm.
do it. And so that's a perfect use case for AI. It's not about eliminating people's job. It's about doing the job that there's no people to do today, right? And then another example, that's a little different example. It's more on the conversation intelligence piece. It's a Fortune 10. I think it's probably a CVS. Historically, they get surveys. They rely on surveys to get feedback on how well the call went, what the customer feedback. But usually the survey take very long. And then you have to create a survey. Sometimes you do not know what you do not know. And then also the response rate is declining. Young people do not like to take surveys, and everyone looking at their phones and have time. It's just like TikTok is almost like water filling all the fragments
Sure.
of your time. So now they work with Cresta, leverage Cresta insights, and we have immediate real-time predictive CSAT for them. So they get a aggregate score or CSAT for each individual score. They can monitor trend for each single cause, and immediately after it's done. So they kind of compare that with surveys, and then the accuracy is the same versus manual surveys, and then the real timeness and how fast, the coverage. It just, you cannot compare that with
Mhm.
survey. So that's way better with the latest AI. And so these are just some of the examples that we're working with customers to bring the value. And there are also sales examples where you have thousands of people selling things in your contact center. But again, a lot of them are temporary workforce, and you train them, but you may not know, whether they're doing or not doing the behavior that you want them to do. And a lot of them, may not know how to handle the objection in the best way. So that's how AI can bring, real-time coaching, and then enforcing and discover behaviors that your best agent's doing, the best seller's doing, that others not doing. And then, historically, you may not even realize that. Now AI can all surface that, and then real-time enforcing that in real time, and also incorporate into your personal coaching and quality management programs. So that really move the needle when you have thousands of people and come and go, and you can now improve behaviors and, enforcing, winning behaviors. And that is a huge improvement in terms of the revenue outcome. So yeah, so there are many different those
Yeah.
use cases in the contact center.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I mean, the one final question before we get into some of my quick fire questions. I mean, you're deeply immersed in this space and have been for years now, not just at Cresta, but prior to that. Um, what sort of trends or things are you expecting to see or emerge in the coming sort of 12 months? What are some of the big sort of shifts or patterns you're expecting to see?
Yeah, I think we're going to see more. It's not something that feel abrupt, but I think it's continuous trends of AI getting better, and in many different aspects in CX world, right? One thing we mentioned is how AI agent not only, custom facing, but the reality, you have a lot of humans today, and then you will see a emergence of a new type of agents. They may not be custom facing, but they do things for humans.
Hmm.
They work next to humans, and what we like to call them ambient agents. And they woke up when there's certain events triggering the conversation. They just run off and do a bunch of maybe information gathering, or historically the humans have to log into multiple systems. They have to compare things before closing an account, and then AI can do that and then
Hmm.
work with that in the browser. So that type of, what we like to call them ambient agent, I think is going to happen. And another thing, I just do really think that we will start to see that, a very concrete step towards this long-lasting relationship between any customer and the brand. So they're going to hear, the AI agent is going to remember the historical conversations, and then make that conversation a lot more personalized. It has been a dream for, it's not a new idea, but just
Hmm.
the technology is not there. But I think eventually you're going to see more and more of those examples in 2026. And then you may even hear the voice can maybe the same. You will, every time you call to a brand, the voice will just be the same voice you hear last time. And, the AI agent will remember what was the voice that you hear last time, and you will just feel that connection. And, instead of every time you feel like talking to a stranger. Another thing that I feel like people talk about agentic, but I do think that the entire contact center will become agentic.
Hmm.
Contact center will, I mean, this combination of human intelligence and AI intelligence. There, your hybrid workforce with AI agent and human agents powered by AI agents. And then the entire collection of that whole thing will become agentic. What does it mean? It means that contact center is going to be proactively surfacing insights and pushing to business leaders and then decision makers. And they're going to hear things that, instead of you go there to pull information and search or asking questions, that's what Questa AI analysts do today. I think we're going to, because again, AI already hearing all these conversations and then already analyzing them, they're going to push information to business leaders. And either it's going to be, actionable process improvements, or some surging issues that, your contact center flooding into your contact center, the call volume increases. You should fix that issue, front run it. So these things, I think, gonna become more agentic, like the entire. So that's why we feel like the entire contact center will become more agentic.
I think particularly the last one. I mean, I think I'd love to see that happen. for the contact center to become more recognizes this beating pulse of what's going on in an organization, and then becomes more strategic, and this because it's proactively pushing kind of insights into other parts of the organization, and then they're almost like going, wow, we didn't know.
Right.
And then they start to act on it, and then they start to almost covet the relationship that they have with the contact center, because I've always said it's like it's the fastest growing real-time database of any organization.
Right.
If you want to know what's going on in your business, then go and speak to people in the contact center, and they will tell you
Right.
where all the problems are.
Right. 100%. And I think that there are a lot of agentic topics around, the usage of agentic AI in each individual conversation level. But I do think that when the contact center whole thing become agentic, that means you will start to do things by itself without you pushing or pulling it, right? And that, including things that we just talked about, is like, it's almost like central nerve system that sensing the signals from different calls in real time, and then start pushing those events and actionable items into business leaders.
Awesome. So, Ping, thank you for that. So before I ask my quick fire questions just to round off, anything else that you'd like to add or highlight that I missed out?
No, I think I really enjoyed the conversation. I think thank you for doing so much research on the topics, and I think that all these are very interesting topics we've been talking about in our WAVE conference.
Awesome. So I've got 3 quick fire questions for you, and the first one is, because we've talked about a bunch of different things. So, and as happens when I speak to different guests on the podcast, I ask them for almost their best advice, and I ask them to provide that by ask them to complete this sentence. And the sentence is this: if you want to improve your customer or say your agent experience, Ping says, do this. Complete that sentence.
I think, the answer is nuanced, right? And it depends on, what stage are you in, AI transformation. But I think the best thing to start is doing conversation insights to really understand the deeper reason why people call in, and then figure out a plan that how do you handle different type of calls. And the solutions are not always the same. Sometimes it's fixing the problem. Sometimes it's automate for self-serve. Some calls are really good candidate for self-serve, and there are others that you want your human to handle still, and you want AI to power them. So again, I think start with observability and understand the call reasons and deeper reason why people call in, and start with the insights.
Awesome. Thank you. And so the next question is a punk one, because it's the Punk CX podcast. And so which company or brand do you think takes a more punk approach to customer experience, and why?
I think one thing immediate come to my mind is Zappos.
Okay.
Zappos, from, unfortunately, the founder, CEO,
Tony Hsieh kind of passed away a few years ago. Yeah.
But at that time, I think they have this philosophy of really provide differentiated customer experience. That means they're not rushing their human agents and CX agents to finish the call. They're not measured based on how short the call went, but rather, they're encouraged that they really solve the problem and spend quality time with their customers. And I do think that that was really a very important philosophy. And today, now AI agents can make that happen and at abundance, and bring, previously you only have humans, that human feel like a scarce resource. Now with AI, and a lot of that scarcity will soon go away, and then you can have really that really high touch experience, and you can afford it for everyone. It's not just like you have a private banker, but if you have a unlimited kind of intelligence, kind of human-like interactions, and then know the context, then you can do that really for every one of your customer, personalized, democratize that access. So that's one thing. Another thing, I think I will say that United Airlines, they're working with us on many different aspects in their CX experience. One thing that they really, really use is they have a team that called Insight to Action, that really just dive deep into all the actions and actionable insights and surface that through Cresta. And then they find a lot of opportunities to improve different aspects of their processes, from UX in the mobile app to additional change sequence of how do you do flows in the UX that can eliminate a lot of type of calls for certain type of buckets. I do think that that's really inspiring, that to me, that AI cannot automate away your problems, but rather give you fix that problem that can really lead to cost reduction. And these are not the costs that you really want. These are the ones that people are not very happy because they got confused or something's broken. And if you can fix that, that's fantastic.
And I love that idea about the kind of insight to action team. I mean, that seems like a really, really kind of like smart thing to do. And I know that, and I've heard Ed Bastian from United speak before, and some of the stuff that they're doing over there is pretty impressive. Never mind kind of the stuff that Zappos are doing, and Tony Hsieh, may rest in peace, is a big loss. But I remember hearing a story about Zappos actually when I visited them, when I happened to have some time when I was in Vegas. They were reflecting on the idea that they wanted to be telephone first, i.e. kind of like conversation first, right? But then they had the rise in chat and email and everything else. And they were bemoaning the fact that they were getting less and less of a chance to talk to people. And that tells you everything you need to know about that company and their philosophy, is that they wanted to make that connection because they could do it over the phone. But when they were getting replaced by other forms of interaction, they felt that was a bit of a loss to what they were about. So I thought that was really interesting.
100%.
So my final question, Ping, is it's all about good news. And because I think we can probably all agree the world is in a funny old place right now, and there's lots of doom scrolling going on. So I've been asking people when they've been on the podcast to tell me a good news story. Like, tell me something that you've found most interesting and positive or exciting, or has made you smile in the last week.
Yeah, my chief of staff is becoming a grandmother.
Yeah.
And also, we really feel happy for her. And overall, Cresta is growing very, very fast, and we're hitting record quarters and after quarters, and we're really looking forward to have more people joining us. And if anyone of your audience are interested in working on the cutting edge of AI transformation in customer experience, and feel free to reach out to us at cresta.com/careers.
Perfect. Well, listeners, you know what to do. Just wanted to say, Ping, thank you. Well, congratulations on your success, and long may it continue. And thank you for sharing your time and your insights and your expertise with me today. That's been super cool.
Thank you, Adrian, for the opportunity. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Wow, what a great interview. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Find out more about me and the work that I do at adrianswinscoe.com. Do leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And if you have any comments, feedback, or questions about the podcast, then feel free to send me a message to podcast@adrianswinscoe.com. And do tune in again. Thanks very much.